November 20th, 2024. 8 days before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, here we are. We're out here.
All right, so this is Relatively Speaking, episode 1. I am Hudson Parker. Alongside me is my brother-in-law, Jeremy Holstrom. And this is our first crack at podcasting. So, I would say we probably started talking about doing this over maybe a few beers.
Yep, definitely a few.
A few cold brews maybe.
Yep.
Zooming a little bit. Started talking like, why don't we do a podcast?
Yep.
And here we are. So I know looking back at this is going to be extremely awkward. I'm already nervous. And you don't think so because we've talked 1,000 hours in our lifetime. And then the second you put a camera in front of you, you're just like, I don't know how to speak.
Yeah. Well, the trip for you is going to be listening to your voice back.
Oh, I already hate that.
It's a crazy phenomenon. I don't know what it's called, something, but I don't know
when
what.
I take a video with the kids and I'm talking and then I hear it, I literally hate it.
Who is that person?
So
yeah,
this will be interesting for sure. But I would say I've been listening to podcasts consistently for almost 10 years, and there's so much information out there, so many different podcasts, that's just like the amount of information and things that we're consuming each day. It's like every time I go on a run, every time I'm in the car, anytime I have down, it's a podcast, and like it's become such a thing
totally
that it was almost like that made it a hesitation, everybody
there's
does
so
a
many
podcast,
of them, right? What are we going to talk about? How are we going to do it?
Yeah, that it was like, should we do it? But here we are.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the things that I've been seeing or stuff that I gravitate to online, it's people that they feel attainable, or they feel like normal, right? Obviously there's people that are freaks on the internet that are just like super athletes, or, super successful real estate agents or financial advisors or whatever. But then the stuff I gravitate to and go back to is people that feel like real and are sharing stuff that feels close to home.
For sure.
With what, you and I talk about stuff, it's having kids, and, we'll obviously intro who we are as we're talking through this. But I think just having fun and trying to be loose and trying to make something that somebody could listen to and sit in on our conversation and feel like, oh, hey, I'm not doing things by myself, or, I don't know. But, so I think the big thing I want to do with this first one is I'll talk about me, you talk about you, and maybe just share who we are. And, obviously we're here because we're trying to make something that feels real to us and ramble as little as possible. But, you shared something about wanting to get connected where we are here in Redding. We're in Redding, California. It's a small town up in Northern California. And we're, I'm a financial advisor. Hudson's a real estate agent. And we are, we'll talk more about that as we make more episodes. But I think maybe for you, maybe talk a little bit about you, how you got into real estate, how you got into, what the last 10 years of your life have been like to get you to.
Well, I'd say that was definitely a reason why we wanted to start the podcast too. Like you were saying, like getting involved. And my family and I have a wife and 3 small kids. My wife, Cipriana, she goes by Sip. You'll hear her referred to as Sip, C-I-P. And Sunday is 4, Charlie is 2, and Georgia is 9 months. Actually, she's almost 10 months.
Dang.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, time is flying. And so we just moved here to Redding this summer in June. It's now November. We're shooting this a week before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So we just got up here, and, the major deciding factor of coming up here was to be around Jeremy and his kids, and my sister Becca and her now little daughter that she just had, and raise our kids together. We're both originally from Orange County, kind of born and raised there in southern Orange County, Mission Viejo. Jeremy met my older sister when he was like a teenager. They started dating, got married young. And
Over 20 years ago now, which is freaking wild, dude.
Yeah. So we've been, in each other's lives for the majority of it. And for me, in terms of, the real estate thing and everything, graduated high school. I went to Mission Viejo High School. I played football and lacrosse all growing up, and you did junior college, didn't you? Didn't you go to Saddleback for a couple years? Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, Saddleback Junior College, shout out. Did a little bit of a little stint there. Yeah. But just it was never really my thing. No. I was kind of my goal. My thoughts were originally to go to junior college and then transfer to UCSB and play lacrosse there. But I got into coaching. I started coaching lacrosse right out of high school. And I instantly, it was like a major passion for me that I just like found coaching to be amazing. And I think the coaches at the time, I was like 19 and they didn't think I'd be taking it as seriously. And they
How many years did you coach lacrosse?
7.
Dang.
So I was an assistant coach for 4 years. And then I got the opportunity to become the head coach, and I was young, like 22, 23, something like that. Became the head coach there, and that was a pretty cool experience. It's just such a trip. The guy before me was a total fraud, like a straight up fraud that was the head coach. He came in.
Fraud in terms of he wasn't
who he said he was. Okay. He literally had a different name and he stole money from the program.
Dang.
We had a surplus of money. Like I think he took like 10 grand. He legitimately, his name that I'm not going to say his name, but that I know him by wasn't his real name. And he knew like nothing. It was so apparent at one of the first coaches meetings. Anybody that's listening to this that knows lacrosse, there's one of the best lacrosse players ever, Kyle Harrison. He played at Johns Hopkins, and then he came to Orange County and coached at J. Sarah for a little while. And one of our parents like mentioned him, and the guy hadn't even heard of him. Meanwhile, he said he played Division I lacrosse at the University of Denver.
I don't think I've ever heard this story.
Yeah, so one of my dads was like like a cop, but like an investigator, and started looking into this guy, and we found out like he was just a total fake.
Dang.
So our team that year went 0-16 under this dude, and Mission Viejo is like known for its sports. It's like
football
a great,
mostly, right?
Great football school. Yeah. So our lacrosse team wasn't ever like great, but we. We would get some stud football players that would play, and we'd teach them, and they would become, we should have never, we were losing to like Woodbridge High School, which is
Capel Valley where I went.
Like it was insane. So he got canned. They offered me the job. I took over, and my first year we went from 0-16 to 8-8. So we were a 500 team. We won half of our games, and I loved it. And did that for 3 years, but I quickly realized, I couldn't make a career out of it, especially, there are some coaches that do, but you really have to get involved in start club programs that are year-round, and it just wasn't something I wanted to do. So my parents had always told me, oh, you need to get involved in real estate, blah, blah, blah. You're so good looking. You're so charismatic. And
this is actually the Hudson Ego Hour. He's going to come in and make him feel better about himself.
So they would tell me that, and I was just like, yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And didn't think anything of it. Was going to get involved, eventually realized I needed to get a real job, quote unquote. So I chose real estate, which is like the fakest real job you could have. So I was going to do that. My little sister met somebody that was doing loans. They were going to interview me for a job to be a loan officer. Then somehow I met another guy. I ended up getting into doing loans originally.
Yeah.
So I had to get licensed as a realtor, but I was a loan officer for commercial real estate. So that was my original introduction into the real estate game. Quickly realized how much that's literally the worst job ever.
Yeah.
Sucks. Being at a desk for 10 hours a day,
Yep.
cold calling people and just like pre-qualifying people is just literally the worst ever. Had a boss breathing down your neck.
Yep.
Guy sucked so much. But good thing I made one of my best friends out of it. So that was super rad. We're super close. Shout out David. But yeah, I got canned from that job, which can't blame the guy. Absolutely hated it. But also he was a total douche. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so then I was like, well, I am licensed as a realtor. I thought that that's what I should have been doing the whole time. Maybe I should just try and sell real estate and see how that goes.
Yeah.
That was in the end of 2019. So I officially got into real estate, selling houses in 2020, which is literally the worst time in history to become a realtor.
What? 2020? Oh, yeah.
My first listing came on the market March 5th, 2020. It was a luxury listing. I got it from my aunt and uncle, which they gave me an opportunity, which was awesome, although they put me through the ringer to get it. They interviewed 6 other agents. I had all of them talking crap on me because I was brand new to the industry.
Green.
But I won the listing, got it, and then in 10 days the world shut down, and that house sat on the market for 6 months because we couldn't show it. No open houses.
Yeah.
It was an eye-opening experience. Eventually it sold, and then from that I kind of started to get my feet wet, started to sell a little bit more. But it's a tough game, and unless you are making connections constantly, you're not going to be selling houses. And so part of doing this podcast was, eventually we'd like to get a guest or two on from in the city. We want to market it throughout Reading. We just want people to know who we are, what we do, see that we're relatable people. That's my biggest selling point in being a realtor. If you are a real estate agent, there's a good chance you're a douchebag. And that's just the reality. There's so many, especially coming from Orange County, so many realtors that are leasing BMWs, Teslas, Mercedes, spending their commission checks on a Rolex and sell 3 houses a year. It's the most fake it till you make it, but 90% of people don't make it industry. That my major selling point, I used to have hair down to here. Pissed I cut it.
I think the kids call that Riz. Cut off all your Riz.
Yes, lost the Riz. Hopefully, it comes back here shortly. But for real, dude, that was my selling point. I'm a normal guy.
Right.
You can talk to me about whatever. I'm not going to sell you on this. I'm not going to tell you your $1.2 million house is worth 1.5 just to get the listing. And then, tell you that we got to do price decreases every month until it sells and blah, blah, blah. I'm not a shark. I am a normal dude that likes to, relate to other people, that I feel like I'm easy to talk to. I work hard, so I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I'm not at all, I would say, your typical realtor. So
do you feel like that's
know that.
A hinder? Because and I'll kind of segue that into me.
Sure.
Do you think it's a hindrance?
It can be. Yeah. I mean, it's been a positive. It's a positive when you get your foot in the door, because every single deal that I've closed, which isn't a ton, but I've obviously made a living doing it. I'm not trying to be some big swinging dick. It's not, you
Yeah.
know, I'm not there yet. I'm still new in my career, but everybody that I've worked with has had a positive experience.
Yeah.
Everybody has said, I remember hearing, you know, when you get feedback after, or you get the Zillow review, some of those Zillow reviews are, you know, they're boosting your ego, but just in conversation, a lot of people have, you know, told me that I was very poised throughout the process. I was able to get back to them very quickly, like those type of things that matter in this
Sure.
situation. Like I'm not ignoring phone calls.
Right.
I'm not, you know, pushing things to the side. I'm not, you know, blowing smoke type deal. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm pretty straightforward in all aspects, but it can be a hindrance because you know, especially when you're starting, you don't have the big name, you know, you might not be having the fancy suit or the nicest car. So people are a little maybe hesitant to think if you're legit or whatever. Where, you know, most of these guys, most of the big realtors got their start by being on a big team or working under somebody and then taking over their book of business or whatever. Like I've definitely done it very organically through friends and family, you know, old school approaches of, you know, sending mailers and door knocking and stuff like that. But the way you get business is by being face to face with people, meeting people, and just having a connection. Like at an open house, wherever I am, like I'm not super salesy. I much would rather, you know, I'm doing an open house on a Saturday or Sunday. I'd much rather talk to them about the college football game that's going on, or like, oh, did you see this or did you see that? Like we don't have to be friends, but like let's find common ground.
Totally.
Let's be somebody that's easy to connect with, because I've found in most areas, and for me personally, when I've worked with people in whatever, buying a car, doing whatever, you want to work with people that you like.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the biggest thing for me. And I'm obviously talking a lot right now, so we can swing it over to you and kind of how you got here. But yeah, dude, just being approachable, being likable is something that I think is huge in that industry. And
I think in both of our industries,
sure.
I think, you know, kind of jumping into me, I am a financial advisor and investment manager, People Investment Co. here in Reading, and got my start just right out of high school. Our cousin, you know, was in the business, and he said, "Hey, you want to come work for me?" And I wasn't going to go to college because I barely made it through high school. It's ironic now that I work with numbers because I took pre-algebra for all 4 years of high school. So kind of interesting the way that all worked out, but went to work at a brokerage firm the day after I graduated from high school, and then did that for a couple years and absolutely hated it. Didn't want to do it, couldn't handle it. It was too stressful. So I pursued firefighting for a couple years, and then in Orange County, it's super competitive because everybody wants to work 10 days a month and
the most competitive.
hang out with the bros. But, you know, found my way back into finance, and that's just what I've been doing. I've been in the business 16 years now, and very much like what you were talking about, it's a sales-driven business. Like the only way you make money is if you're selling stuff. And I am not a salesperson. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not a schmoozer. I don't kiss ass. I don't.
This is the most I've heard you talk in
Yeah.
a couple months.
Well, the funny thing is like those, you know, oh, did you see the game last night? I don't watch sports. So you guys will come to find that that's an interesting.
Did you see the game? Which one? Any of them?
Yeah, quoting The Office all the time. But so it's an interesting place to find myself in a position as a financial advisor and investment manager where people are looking to me to. The industry itself is looking for salespeople. They're looking for someone to sell them an insurance policy or sell them a mutual fund, and I don't do it that way. I very much similar to what you said. It's funny to me that we're both in positions that are opposite, but also our approach is the same, which is where I think we find a lot of common ground. But professionally, that's what I do. I'm married. I have 5 kids. Married to
My
Hudson's
sister.
sister Sarah, and we have 5 kids. We've been together for a long ass time. I met Sarah when I was 12 or 13. I think 12, 13. Long time. I'm 37 now. 38. How old am I?
37.
37. Anyway, long time. And Sarah and I are married. She is awesome. We'll hear us talk about our wives a lot because they're a huge part of why we do what we do and who we are. But, one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about too is we're obviously rambling at this point and wanted to keep this to, topical things. Is maybe talk about, we're both big runners. Super into, taking care of ourselves physically, and signed up for, Hudson's done several marathons. I've done a couple marathons, and we've got another one coming up in January. So maybe we talk about, training for those and the fact that it's going to be raining in Reading for the next 7 days. And
Yeah.
we're just entering the suck of suck.
Yep. Woke up this morning. I usually wake up at 6 to run at 7 every day, or, the days that I do 4 or 5 days a week. Woke up this morning. It was like 34 degrees and pouring rain. Looked out the window and said, not this morning.
Nope.
So my
Not
inner
today.
bitch came out.
Yep.
I crawled back in my cozy bed that now my little Georgie was in, because she woke up at about 4 from her
Nice.
crib and was in our bed snuggling. So I snuggled up to her and went back to sleep.
Nice.
And now I'm going to run on the treadmill this afternoon, which I'm doing 7 miles, and that's a pretty standard run for me. But when you put that on a treadmill,
You just
I'd
gotta watch
rather
a movie,
blow
man.
my brains out.
Movie time.
It's 7 miles on a treadmill sucks, man. I don't know what it is, the difference. Jeremy doesn't seem to think it's that much different, but it's like, it's the worst. I think the most I've run on a treadmill was like 5 miles, and I hated it. And now I'm like, well, I went from Orange County where it rained 3 times a year to now it's 7. I don't know how to drive.
Dude, but not last year when you were when we were training for the one last year. It rained all February.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was very wet.
I ran a 16-mile run for that.
Yeah,
on the river trail in Costa Mesa in the pouring rain, and I had an angel that ran with me, so that was awesome. I met an older gentleman that had done like hundreds of marathons, like on mile like 12, and he just like chatted with me until I got to my 16 miles, and it literally was like epic. I came home, I was the most cold ever, like it was just pouring rain on me. And I was like, dude, that guy got me through the finish. That was all time. No idea who he was, but shout out to him because that was epic. Yeah. But yeah, we just started our training block for this Reading Marathon. It's January 19th, which I think is my mom and dad's anniversary.
Oh.
I'm pretty positive it is. And if it is, this might be their 40th wedding anniversary.
Dang.
So I might not be a great son for not remembering that fully, but I believe that's what I think that's where we're at. So we're doing that. So we're like 10 weeks away right now. We just did the Reading half. When was that? October 6th or something?
Yep.
In October. So that was kind of like a little warm up to get us going. So now we're in the training block to do the full.
Dude, which reminds me, I saw this thing last night. It was 2 runners from the 70s on a podcast talking about their training when this was like before they had like the super thick foam support shoes like we run in now. They were literally running in like ASIC tennis shoes, doing 100
Converse.
120 miles a week. This one dude, I
don't even know.
But that's not even the crazy thing. So the dude, an older guy, he's 82 on this podcast. This podcast was filmed like a couple weeks ago. He's 82 on the podcast. He said from the time that he was 23 until 79, he was doing 100 miles a week.
Dude.
I'm just like, that's literally you're running 20 miles 5 times a week.
Yeah. Dude, it's insane. Like that's what
20
we
miles every
talk
day.
about. Like we are, like we said, we're runners, but we're very like novice in that sense. Like
Yeah.
we're not gnarly. Like
No.
there's, if you know running or hybrid athletes stuff, like we're
Yeah.
into lifting and running, but there's a guy, Nick Bear, who's like super famous, popular, whatever you would call him, and he's a runner, and he casually runs like 70 miles a week. Like it's not even, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so we're in this training block, we're doing like 35-mile weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so that's like for instance, we'd go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7-mile runs,
Yeah.
and then a 14-mile run on Saturday. That would put you at 35. We lift Monday and Friday, rest Sunday.
Yeah.
So I mean, realistically, we could add 2 more days to running, but like even with that, like 35 miles, that's like not that much compared to what some of these guys do.
Yeah, no.
And I'm like, I can't, how
Yeah.
can you do much more than that? Okay. So we add 2 more days of running 7 miles a day. You know, that's another 14 miles. So that's it's still under 50 miles.
Yeah, it's not even.
I'm
yeah,
like,
I don't. I don't get
some of these guys are just nuts.
it. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, we're not that.
No.
But we do like it. We both pretty much picked it up during COVID. I'd say for me, I know when the gym stuff like happened, like I ran a half in 2019. That was my first go at like any distance. I was like the guy that like ran like a mile on the
Yeah.
treadmill and then like lifted weights.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm a pretty standard dude. Like that's just what my like workouts would be. And I don't know, for some reason I decided to do a half, did it was cool. And then when COVID happened and the gym thing happened, like when you had to wear a mask to the gym, I was like, there's no chance I'm ever working. Like I would like, and it was optional at sometimes too. Like at one phase when I went back, it was optional, and I would like see people on a treadmill at the gym, like wearing masks, like running, sweating. And I'm just like, that's so insane. Not only is it stupid,
Dangerous.
but like, yeah. So when that happened and gyms were all closed or you had to wear masks, I was like, I'm going to take up running. So I started a run, and like looking back on it, we were talking the other day at like what we thought like a lot of running was. Like we would run like 3 miles a day, like 3 or 4 times a week, like maybe a 5-mile run was our long one. The first half marathon I ran, the longest run I ever did was a 7-mile run on a track. And that was and then I just essentially raw dogged a half marathon, and I was so fricked after. But yeah, now like as we're getting more into it, and there's so much access, like we're saying with podcasts, like through just social media and everything, there's so much information out there. So that it's good and bad. You know, we've learned a lot about the approaches to running and what to do and how to fuel your body, how to like, you know, train appropriately, how to rest. Like we go in the river after this, the trail that we run is across alongside the Sacramento River, which stays at like 50 degrees year round. Mm-hmm. So we'll do a run and then we'll jump in there for like a cold plunge, which is awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be nice and full
things
for you now after all this rain.
Yeah. They let water out of it in the last couple of weeks. So it's been like, you haven't really been able to go in. It's been too shallow, but they do that in anticipation of the rain. So now that it's pouring for the next 7 to 10 days, it'll get nice and full and be able to go back in.
We need the rain.
But yeah, so like we said, this is kind of what it's going to look like. You know, we're going to put these out weekly. Consistency is going to be key. Just
100%.
getting them out there.
Yep.
We'll have different things to talk about, react to different things. Like, you know,
If you're
we
bored-
don't want it to necessarily be about our careers. Like we just want to have fun and
Yeah.
but it's a part of our life. So if something cool happens with an escrow or something, a new client comes to Jeremy and there's stuff to talk about, we're going to talk about it. Something big in the market happens, like it might get brought up.
Yeah.
But that's not the goal of this podcast primarily. It's just to have fun,
Yeah.
chat, catch up weekly, let you guys get to know us and, be approachable, see us around. Hopefully you've heard us on this pod.
Yeah.
Bring it up. Tell us that we're awesome
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
to know
I think
the people that we live with
yeah.
in the city.
I definitely, this obviously feels like awkward as balls, but I think as we get more comfortable and just recognize we're just trying to have a conversation and memorialize it
Yeah.
and record it. And, being that we are very much opposite in a lot of ways, we're also like best friends and homies. And I think it's to try and capture that
Dynamic,
aspect
yeah.
and that dynamic of our relationship it's entertaining to me and it's kind of difficult to entertain me. So, I think,
Yeah,
this
it is pretty funny.
The Gladiator moment, which Gladiator next Friday, stoked.
Yes. We're
Um,
going to well, it actually comes out this Friday. It comes out this Friday.
We're going to see, we're
second.
we're going to
But
go see it
we're
next
going
Friday.
to see it
Yeah.
next Friday when
Yeah.
our dad comes into town
Yeah.
for Thanksgiving, Gladiator 2. Which that reminds me, I'm gonna watch the first one again. I mean, I've seen it probably 10 times, but it's an all-timer.
Dude, have you seen the Russell Crowe Robin Hood?
Yeah, for sure.
I would
a
just
great
watch
one.
that yesterday. It's fantastic.
That's a great one.
Good one.
That's something that we'll definitely talk about on here. We're big into shows, and as it's funny,
I'm
like Jay was
32
saying,
minutes into Yellowstone.
You're only yes. So I've watched all of Yellowstone. Now I'm rewatching it because the last season it's actually going on right now. So I like to catch back up and refresh my memory,
Refreshers.
and then watch it. But yeah, as opposite as we are, we do have a lot of things in common too. I'd say our favorite show is Sons of Anarchy.
Without question.
All time show.
Favorite. Well, okay, so favorite drama, but also for me, Breaking Bad is definitely a contender.
Yeah,
But
100%.
I've watched Sons of Anarchy through probably 3 times, but Breaking Bad I've only watched through once.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all good though.
I'm going to save some of these topics for our next podcast, but yes, Sons of Anarchy and Breaking Bad are for sure in my top 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be episode
That's it.
1 of, what are we calling this thing again?
Relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Nice play on words. We are relatives.
We are
We are
relatives.
speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Jeremy Holstrom, Hudson Parker. We out.
Bye everybody.